Hi everyone, my name is Charlie, and today is the beginning of another reading vlog. It is Monday, and I arrived to work to discover that somebody had left a lot of bags in the car park, blocking the entrance, and I'm feeling some type of way today. I'm not at my best, health-wise. I left here on Saturday feeling like I was coming down with something. I've now had this incredibly sore throat, aching and tiredness for, well, if we get to the end of today with it, it will be 2 days, and you know I don't respond well to not feeling my best. I've had a lot of hot drinks yesterday. I've been on the Lemsip, the First Defence, the Fisherman's Friends, the Strepsils, anything I could find in that house. I mean, look at me. Very full of face today. So yeah, I've been a bit grumpy the last couple of days. I mean, when am I not grumpy? But just a bit worse. This did mean that I didn't finish the Moonlight market yesterday. And you might be thinking, Charlie, you've had a sore throat, how does that stop you from reading? Well, it's one of those things, isn't it? When you just don't feel well. Well, when I don't feel well, I immediately try everything within my power to get rid of the illness. And so I was just knocking back these hot drinks and trying to get rid of it, and my mind is just so heavily focused on trying to get rid of that I just can't settle to anything else. However, I have fewer than 100 pages left of the Moonlight market. It is not the autumnal book that I thought it was going to be. I imagined that would be a lot more whimsy than there is, but in terms of the fantasy that I like to read in autumn, it's there. It's got that fantastical edge. It feels like a fairy tale. I like the way that Joanne Harris has done her magic in this book, and I always say one of the ways that I can tell when a book is really good for me and to my taste is when it's inspiring me to go and write, and this has been inspiring me to go and look at the little fairy story that I wrote a few years ago where a bookseller had his dog kidnapped by fairies and had to rush off to fairyland to save it. One day I might go back to that book. I was looking at all of the books that I wish to write last night and compiling a list and trying to figure out when I want to write them, when I can write them, and managed to get to 2030 if I write at the pace that I continue to write at. I'm going to be 40 before any new ideas can be worked on, unless of course I actually manage to get into some sort of routine, because if I were to get into some sort of routine and said to myself, write 1,000 words a day, Charlie, then I could have the final 3 books in the Alice Valentine series complete within 6 months next year. However, I don't write like that. It doesn't work for me. I don't know why. I really wish it could. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe I just need to develop greater stamina and have more people screaming down my neck. But then the quality wouldn't be what I want it to be. The Moonlight market is a great fairy story suitable for autumn and deals with the kinds of fairies that I like, where they're not actually called that. They're called the Silken Folk in here. They have a whole mythology surrounding them. There's links to other books by Harris which have come out in those little books of hers, The Blue Salt Road, Orphea, and oh gosh, A Pocket Full of Crows. There are more, I think there's one more than that, and they've been compiled in Maid and Mother Crone. But I've appreciated those few links that we've seen, and maybe even Honeycomb's mentioned there as well, because this narrator type says something and I'm like, I'm sure that's Honeycomb. Anyway, it was good for me to see all these links, especially as somebody who keeps connecting all of his own works and saying to people, well, you don't have to read them all. It's like, well, eventually they're going to reach a point where if they haven't read them all, they're not going to know who the characters are. This is the beginning of the week. I'm behind with videos from last week, having not recorded anything but my vlog last week, so hopefully we'll catch up on that this week. We'll catch up on the writing, sort out some events for next year. It's all go. I've been contacted by a library about further events for Shepherd's Delight, so I'm trying to arrange for Mistakes Mean Murder as well. And I need to see whether I still want to do some anniversary thing for a decade of Doris. you know, let me know your thoughts on that one. Oh, and also, yeah, let me know if you've any ideas where I can go and share my work. And feel free to let me know that as well. It's Wednesday. The sore throat has not yet abated, and I'm hoping that it's not a sign of bigger things to come. Still got the tiredness, a little bit of exhaustion that's making it a bit difficult to do much, but yesterday it snowed and I still managed to walk Sel around the park. Don't know if that was a good idea or not. But you know, exercise is necessary. I know for a fact that I need to exercise based on all of the joint issues I've got. And even if it's a painful thing, we've got to kind of just power through it. That was that. I also made a cauliflower and chickpea curry last night that I didn't like, but my family seemed to. So that's where we are with that one. I finished reading The Moonlight Market by Joanne Harris, as I said I would. Enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed Joanne Harris's other works. It did not give me the sensation that I'd hoped for, the autumnal feeling that I look for, but it was a good urban fantasy novel. Although I don't know whether it can be called urban fantasy. It was more like a fairy tale, and it felt like it followed the laws of fairy tale a bit more than an urban fantasy novel might do. It won't be a book for everybody, I can tell that now. I had a few issues with the way this book went. It's the perfect length for what it's doing, but I feel like it's a book that also couldn't decide what it wanted to be. But if you look at it as a modern fairy tale, then it suits a fairy tale sensibility. But if you looked at it as a autumnal fantastical urban fantasy novel, then I think it's a bit lacking. There are touches of the things that I like in urban fantasy and this type of tale in here, but I feel like perhaps you have to know more about Joanne Harris's other fairy tale type books in order to get a better appreciation of what she's talking about in here. And that's that. I planned to email libraries and try and organise events for Mistakes Me and Murder yesterday, and it didn't happen. I spoke to Charlie, we were organising the Christmas crackers in the morning, then I finished the Joanne Harris, took the dog for a walk, came back, made the curry, and then that was it. I'm unsure what I'll be reading next, so I need to go back to my TBR video and see what I included. I know that there are a few big books I haven't tackled yet, and I'm wondering whether to read one of them or attempt to, because next week is going to be quite busy for me. We start recording the Christmas crackers on Tuesday and I have an event in the afternoon. It's getting towards that time of the year where I am inordinately busy due to like trying to garner a bit of extra cash before Christmas. No, I just end up with a lot of, well, I say a lot. I end up with my most events and the most things I have to do in December, but I think everybody ends up with weeks like that. So yeah, that's me for today. Don't yet know what I've got planned. Was trying to write something for the writers group because we've got a read around tomorrow, but maybe I just won't read anything. That's if the sore throat's gone, because I might not want to read at all. Either way, I'm hoping it's gone by Friday because I've got to go to work. And yeah, I'll see you then. It's Friday, and since last we spoke, I did a short walk with Sally around the park and have not read anything because, well, here I was, and I'd gone downstairs and I was thinking, I've brought The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan down to read, but we started this jigsaw. I found that some of the Big Finish 8th Doctor audio dramas with Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor and India Fisher as Charlie Pollard are on Spotify, and I've been meaning to listen to these for years. I think that in terms of Doctor Who, the 8th Doctor has a lot of scope. They can do anything with his stories, really, and I've wanted to see what they do in the audio dramas. I put this audio drama on thinking I'd just listen to a bit of it whilst I did this jigsaw, and listened to the whole thing, and that went on for 2 hours. And then I had tea to make, So nothing got read on Wednesday and nothing got read yesterday because of the jigsaw and also having to get ready for the writers group. I've been trying to get something written for the writers group for the read round and that didn't happen. And then someone said, why don't you bring something from your next cozy crime to read? I was like, it completely slipped my mind that I could do that. So if I haven't written anything next week, that's what I'll do for that. But I've just arrived to work to find that, well, I knew that the volunteers who did the till were off today, but we've not been able to find anyone to cover that, so I'm going to have to be on the till all day. So that means I'm not going to be able to take donations because the middle room's already full, and I'm going to have to work on getting the Christmas stock out. So it's going to be a busy one today. I mean, it's always busy really, especially at this time of year when there's only 4.5 weeks till Christmas, and my manager is currently off for, I think, 3 out of 4 of those weeks. So, busy time of year. I like Christmas, so that's fine by me. I think I've got 3 people left to buy for, so I'm nearly done really. And will I do any reading tonight? Probably not. Probably not, because I've developed a new thing of watching I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Never, like, we used to watch it, then I stopped watching it years ago, and now it's kind of like the mindless junk that I switch on in the evening. Admittedly, I think it's only been whilst the jigsaw's been there, so it's something I can sit and watch whilst finishing the jigsaw, so maybe with no jigsaw I won't care. But we'll find out this evening. I'm gonna go, because you can probably hear I'm still very nasal. I think it's just a cold, and ordinarily, had I the opportunity, I probably would have stayed in bed today because there was a lot of snow. I had to get my dad to bring me in, and we've slided all over these roads. But there's nobody to cover because my manager's in Scotland and the other shop assistant now works at another shop on a Friday. So I'm literally the only person who could be here today. It's fun. I will see you tomorrow to round everything off, hopefully. My mother's going in for an operation today and she usually gives me a lift on Saturday, so hopefully I can get here tomorrow. Hopefully there's someone who can drive me in. It's Saturday and I am really just here to round things off. I have kept my coat on because it is decidedly cold today. We just arrived to watch as a traffic cone was sent flying down the car park by the wind. Yesterday was an incredibly poor day for the shop. I don't know whether people were put off by the fact that I wasn't the wellest, and since certain global events, illnesses tend to send people running in the opposite direction. Quite honestly, I probably didn't want to be in work yesterday given how I was feeling, but as I said yesterday, my manager is on holiday and the other shop assistant works elsewhere on a Friday, so if I hadn't come in, I don't really know what would have happened. So I was here and the weather was poor and the shop was empty. But I did find a book yesterday, not the one I'm about to take off the shelf, but recently we've been getting a lot of Lin Anderson books donated to the shop. I joined Blue Sky earlier in the year and decided to go and follow a load of people on there this week, and Lin Anderson was one of them. And when I saw that the book Driftnet was the first book to feature Rona McLeod, and she is one of the forensic scientists looking into crimes. It's like, well, I always wanted to read a book like this. I used to really enjoy the Tess Gerritsen series, and I mentioned that here because I haven't been getting very many books this year or taking them on a whim from here, and I picked it up off the shelf, decided to take it home, and I read 102 pages of it last night with the hope of reading another 100 pages this evening and finishing it tomorrow. I mentioned Tess Gerritsen because the style reminded me a little bit of the Rizzoli and Isles series, and on somewhere it mentions how this book could be a companion in style to Rebus. I think it's because it's this tartan noir thing where it's a bit of a grim Scottish crime novel. It reminded me of everything I liked about Tess Gerritsen and about Ian Rankin. So I am really enjoying Driftnet. I like the character of Rona McLeod. I think it's very stylistic of 2003 when the book came out. But I always like seeing that in crime fiction and looking at the ways books were styled back then as opposed to how they're styled nowadays. And part of me was already really looking forward to reading more books in the series because I know it's ongoing. I don't know whether I think it's the same character. Follow the Dead was released in 2017 and this does feature Rona McLeod. So, or is it McLeod? Should that be Rona McLeod? Oh, this is something to look up. I will look up how Lin Anderson says it and how other people say it. I'm not very good with pronunciations of surnames, clearly, at this time of morning. So I'm interested to see how the style has changed in all those years, because it definitely happens. You see it in a load of other books, you see it with a lot of different writers. Is this something that I wanted to do? Probably not. Did I want to be throwing out the books from my TBR to read this? Yes, because I was looking at the books on my TBR and feeling a certain type of way about them, and sometimes it just takes reading something to get you to go back into reading the ones you're supposed to be reading. I could see myself taking Lin Anderson as one of those writers whose works I just want to read straight through. Similar to what I did with Jo Nesbø back in the day. One of our customers came in yesterday and bought the Jo Nesbø we had on the shelf and said she'd read 3 of them on holiday out of order, and she'd done that in 5 days and now just wanted to read them all. We were just enthusing about the series as much as we could do, me being quite nasally yesterday. So that was fun, and considering I do have a cosy crime novel coming out in 2 months, it probably makes sense to be looking more at some crime fiction. And I like it when it's good. I like it when the crime fiction also talks about the characters' families and their lives outside of their work. And I like how conflicted Rona is as a character. This book in particular is dealing with the murder of male sex workers and brings up a part of Rona's history. And I think as a first, if this was the debut novel from Lin Anderson, then I can see why it was brought out and I can see why it's now such a popular series. 100 pages in. For me, it's great crime fiction. And as I say, stylistic of the time, it's funny to think that this is 21 years ago and the homophobia that is rife within the book, but it feels very suitable for the story that's being told and for what's going on with specific characters. And I like seeing how all of these characters are going to link together, and it feels like Anderson is pulling together all of these threads already, or at least expanding upon them before she pulls them together, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this book goes. But that's me. In the coming week I have a poetry reading. Charlie and Charlie's Christmas Cracker is going to be coming back, and I gotta see if I can finish some more books of my TBR and actually get some writing done. So that is me. What have you been up to this week? We didn't get very many walks of me. There's not much scenery to look at, but we were here. What have you been reading? What have you been up to? Do let me know in the comments. If you want to discuss anything I've discussed in this video, then you can do that too. I hope that you got something out of this video, because until next time, that is all.